What do women-led digital services firms actually need from trade and related policies? And what happens if the WTO moratorium on customs duties on electronic transmissions disappears?
Hi, my name is Mia Mikic.
And I'm Sherry Stephenson. We are here to contribute to the work program that APEC is carrying out in the area of services trade. And yesterday we made a presentation to the annual meeting of the group on services here. We presented the outcome of our project where we examined how to enhance women's participation in high-skilled digitally delivered services in the Asia Pacific.
We will be using our project, as Sherry just explained, which includes the interviews with 15 women-led startups and young companies across the tech economies that who work in digitally delivered services from IT and fintech and professional and other creative services.
Right. As Mia said, these are small firms. They don't have a global footprint in markets. We're a global markets yet. They don't ship containers. They don't produce products. They're service-based and they send design files, software code, accounting services, legal advice, educational services, both domestically and across borders. But to do this, they face fragmented regulations, a lot of barriers, rising compliance costs, weak digital infrastructure, often at home, and limited recognition of skills and credentials. So we wanted to share some lessons we learned from our interviews with these firms, particularly the women CEO who started these firms, all of them between 5 and 10 years ago. And what this means for officials who are now going to be discussing the extension or not of the WTO moratorium on customs duties on electronic transmissions in the next ministerial conference in Cameroon. And platforms, they have to speak and express their needs and requirements and objectives is the WTO public sessions once a year and also the WTO Ministerial Conference every 2 years. So it's really important that the needs, priorities of the small firms that are not as easy access to policymakers as the larger ones be heard. The moratorium is critical in this context because all of the firms that we interviewed, all of them, started and maintain and expand their operations through digital platforms. And therefore, without such a moratorium, it would be extremely costly for them, probably prohibitively costly for them to continue a cross-border delivery of their services or try to expand. It would increase their delay time. It would increase their compliance cost. SMEs have very small margins. And we know when all of the things become more difficult, it's the women-led firms that are always hit the first. So for these firms, putting tariffs on electronic transmissions is not an option. It's almost a death sentence.
Yeah, and in particular because they operate in niche markets, however, they are not large companies. They operate on thin profit margins, just almost of, in many cases, just covering the costs.
Right.
So they cannot actually afford any additional costs that these duties would impose. But what we also propose in our study is that policymakers need to go beyond just defending the extension of the moratorium. They need to provide a better policy ecosystem for the operation of digital firms.
Right. We found the moratorium is really important and essential, but not sufficient. But based on the experience that we gathered through this project and through these interviews, for these firms we interviewed, led by women startups, the tariffs on electronic transmissions are not abstract. They would be a direct tax on their participation in global markets and probably something that in many cases would drive their firms under. So defending the moratorium matters, but it's only the starting point. As Mia mentioned, digital trade policy today is increasingly based on trade in digitally delivered services. And that means we have to look at good regulatory practice for these services. We have to look at interoperable rules for digital commerce and digital trade and recognition of qualifications, which often is a bit neglected, but really important, as well as data frameworks. So the real question for MC14 is really very simple, at least in our minds and in the minds of those who trade. Will trade rules agreed by officials from WTO members help these businesses grow, or will they quietly price them out? We hope that the first is the answer.
Definitely.